The premise of the show is based over 360 years in the future. Science has provided humans with innovations that were once only a dream. Flying cars, AI-generated services, and several medical breakthroughs are some of the most prominent new discoveries. However, on the top of the list is an invention called the Stack. It is a chip embedded into the vertebrae at the back of the neck. This device records a person's memories and consciousness. Some people also call it the soul of modern humans, as it contains data about everything that has ever happened in a person's life. Using a stack, the rich have found a way to live like immortals. When their bodies die, all they have to do is transfer the stack to a new body, which they call the sleeve. That way, they can change sleeves again and again and live forever as long as the stack remains intact. The poor are also allowed to have such services, but it is not very convenient for them. Firstly, buying a new sleeve costs a lot of money. Sometimes the less fortunate have to use any sleeve they can get, which means a man's stack can be stuck in a woman's body, a child's in an adult's, and so on. This is not a problem for the wealthy, because they clone their original bodies to make customized sleeves. So even if they die, they are automatically brought back to life in a new clone. In the new digitalized world, the prison system has also changed. When someone is convicted of a crime, their stack is taken out of their bodies and kept confined. That way, they do not get to live for a said period of time until they complete their sentence. After they serve their time, they are given random sleeves to return to the normal world. One morning, in the prison's medical center, the inmates are being re-sleeved and released. One guy in particular struggles to return to life and hits the doctor in frustration. The body belongs to a stranger, but the person wearing the body is a man named Takeshi Kovacs. He has been in prison for 2.5 centuries, which is why he is confused. The doctors calm him down before reporting that he has served his sentence and is about to be released. Takeshi looks at himself in a mirror and sees a stranger staring back. He inquires whose body he is in, but even the doctors do not know. 250 years ago, Takeshi used to be a prominent member of a rebel group called the Envoys. They were painted as maniacs by historians because they wanted to destroy all stacks in the world and bring back mortality. A flashback shows us how Takeshi was arrested years ago. He was with a partner in a hotel room when the police, known as the Protectorate, barged inside. They had already killed all the envoys in their hideout, hence Takeshi was the last envoy to be arrested. After catching up with the world, Takeshi goes outside and meets a police lieutenant named Kristen. She has been sent by someone powerful to give him a ride. Takeshi has a lot of questions that she claims will be answered when he meets someone named Bancroft. Bancroft is the most powerful man in the modern world. He is the wealthiest and has connections in about every part of the world. Initially, Takeshi was never supposed to be brought back to society, but for some reason, Bancroft wanted him out. He and Kristen are received by Bancroft's wife, Miriam. She asks Kristen to go away and brings Takeshi inside the house. He senses that she is trying to seduce him, which is strange considering her husband is the wealthiest man on earth. Not that strange though. Rich people have the weirdest fetishes in all the land. Takeshi finally meets Bancroft and inquires why he was brought back to life. Bancroft gets to the point and reveals that he was killed a month ago. His data was backed up, so he came back to life, but he lost the memory of the last 48 hours prior to his death. The police have done their investigation and concluded that Bancroft committed the unthinkable. However, he believes their investigation is bullshit. He is 100% sure he would never do something to harm himself, and even if he did, he wouldn't fail. Hence, the only possible explanation for the death is that he was murdered. He needed the most intelligent mind in the world to solve the case for him, which is why Takeshi has been revived. Before being mass murdered, envoys were a powerful group. They learned the great power of intuition and problem solving, which still remains a secret to the rest of the world. Currently, only Takeshi has those skills, so Bancroft wants him to find his murderer in turn for his freedom. Takeshi gives it a thought, and then refuses to help him. The main aim of Envoys was to go against people like Bancroft, hence he would rather be stuck in a stack forever than help him. Still, Bancroft gives him a day to think it over. Following the conversation, Takeshi goes to the slums part of town and buys a bunch of illegal pills. He eventually ends up in the red light zone, surrounded by virtual advertisements of brothels. Since he is high, the advertisement looks real, and he almost loses his mind. Fortunately, Kristen comes to his aid and gives him an ad blocker. Takeshi questions her being too interested in him, but Kristen argues it's because he is a national terrorist. The two then go to a strip club to discuss Bancroft's death. Kristen was the lead cop in the investigation, which is why she is positive that it was a case of self-harm. Takeshi doesn't believe her, but he has no interest in taking the case, so he dismisses the conversation altogether. He leaves first and goes to an AI hotel down the road. The owner of the place is an AI named Poe. He hasn't had a customer in over 50 years and is excited to finally receive one. Before Takeshi can check in, he is approached by a hitman named Demi and his henchmen. Demi has been sent by someone to fetch Takeshi, but when Takeshi insults him, he derails from the primary plan and gets aggressive. Poe cleverly tells Takeshi that once he pays, he will be entitled to the hotel's security services. Amidst the fight, the envoy manages to pay, and the opponents are killed by the hotel's automated security system. Demi also dies before revealing who sent him. A while later, Kristen and her partner arrive to investigate the shootings. Demi's presence in the gang tells them that the person who sent the thugs is someone high profile, but this also means it will be very difficult to track them. When everything calms down, Takeshi goes into the elevator and gets high once again. Then, he imagines talking to the leader of the envoys, Quell. She was the one true love of his life before she was killed in the mass murder of envoys. In the following scene, we see a fisherman finding a dead body in the sea. It is of a prostitute named Mary Lou. Back in the hotel, Takeshi is visited by Bancroft's lawyer. She brings him to Psychosec, the place where the clones of wealthy people are kept and dealt with. They are here to watch the surveillance video of the day when the murder took place. It turns out Bancroft was in Osaka for half of the day before he returned to the city, but the only video taken after his return is one where Miriam kisses him briefly. As he inspects the video, Bancroft arrives, and Takeshi agrees to help him in turn for his freedom. He plans to fulfill the purpose of the envoys after he gains complete freedom. At the police station, Kristen is asked to talk to a bereaved mother about her daughter's dead body. She is the mother of the prostitute, Mary Lou, whose body was found in the sea that morning. Kristen calms the mother down, but is actually interested in the case. Back in the hotel, Poe shows Takeshi all the videos of death threats made upon Bancroft that year. There are more than 4,000 videos, with different people on them, and anyone could be the killer. But with Takeshi's deduction skills, he drops the options down to 20 videos. Out of them, only one man hasn't shown his face. Poe traces the man's address and finds out he is named Elliot. In the following scene, Takeshi goes to meet Elliot, who mistakes him for an enemy. He holds Takeshi at gunpoint, but it is easy for him to overpower the man. After all, he's ripped like a goddamn elephant. After tying him to a chair, Takeshi sits on his station and goes to the virtual place. There, he meets Elliot's daughter, Lizzie, who is in a dark alleyway, alone and scared. Elliot explains that his wife was arrested for hacking, and his daughter Lizzie disappeared right after. One day before her disappearance, she said that she was in a relationship with Bancroft. This makes Elliot believe Bancroft is the cause of her disappearance, which is why he sent the death threat. Elliot managed to find Lizzie's stack, but her body is dead and he cannot afford a new sleeve. Moreover, she has suffered great mental trauma and has shut down from life, still stuck in the alleyway she was thrown at. After finding out everything about Elliot, Takeshi comes to the conclusion that he is not the killer. Following the encounter, he goes to the city's Envoy Museum. He meets a little girl who is extra chatty with him. The girl seems to know something about him, but Takeshi fails to recognize it. Then, he takes a trip to the red light zone again, because he has discovered that Lizzie used to be a prostitute. To investigate, Takeshi buys a girl, pretending to be Lizzie's mother in a man's sleeve. The girl doesn't doubt him and reveals that Bancroft was a regular customer. He likes to choke girls until they die, which he has done to many prostitutes. However, all of them think of him as a good man because he buys them an upgraded sleeve after they die. That's fucked up. The prostitute promises to talk around and find out more about what happened to Lizzie. When Takeshi steps out of the brothel, he finds Elliot pointing his gun at him. He wants to know why Takeshi is interested in Lizzie, but before getting an answer, they are attacked by robbers. Takeshi kills all of them and ends up in jail by the end of the night. He is eventually bailed out by Bancroft's lawyer. Upon reaching the hotel, Takeshi finds Miriam waiting for him. She seduces him, and the two end up making love with one another. What they do not know is that someone is recording them through a secret camera. Joke's on them if they think Takeshi gives a damn. The following morning, Takeshi dreams of himself and his sister reading stories when they were young. Both of them had a traumatic childhood, which he doesn't like to talk about. Later, Poe shows him an invitation from Bancroft to an exclusive party. The attendees of the party include everyone who might want Bancroft dead, so Takeshi has to be there to investigate. At the same time, Kristen is also invited as the head of security for the night. She knows that Bancroft doesn't like her, which makes the invitation suspicious. She is skeptical about going until she discovers that every suspect from Mary Lou's death case will be at the party. This will give her an opportunity to investigate, which she doesn't want to miss. Somewhere else, Takeshi again goes to Elliot and asks him to be his backup for the party. In turn, he promises to provide Lizzie with a virtual treatment for her mental health. Elliot doesn't dwell before accepting the offer for his daughter. Then, they go to the hotel and meet Poe. He will be Lizzie's companion for the time she will be treated in the virtual world. He creates a nice space for her and brings her away from the dirty alleyway she was in. The price is expensive, but Takeshi has a tab given to him by the wealthiest man on the planet. For the first time in years, Lizzie speaks and talks to Poe. Elliot is relieved that she is finally making progress. In the next scene, Takeshi arrives at the party and is received by Miriam. The highlight of the party is sleeve combat, about to take place later. A married couple will fight each other to the death, and the one who wins will win an upgraded sleeve for their partner. It is a win-win situation, although they have to suffer until they die at the hands of each other. Takeshi and Kristen share a brief conversation before they get to looking for murders for the respective cases they are working on. Kristen notices a man looking at her from the side of the room. He seems suspicious, so she tells her colleague to check his profile. However, the camera embedded in her eye doesn't seem to record the guy. Elliot, on the other hand, is disguised as a waiter. He goes to the surveillance room to steal CCTV footage from the day his daughter disappeared. In the middle of the party, Takeshi notices Miriam entering a hidden room behind the bookshelves. He follows her and catches her having sex with the head of security. But it turns out the woman isn't Miriam, but one of her daughters in her mother's sleeve. What did I say about rich people kinks? Takeshi interrogates her about her father's death because she might have dressed up as her mother and killed him that night. The woman, however, argues that she will be left penniless as per Bancroft's will if he dies. Hence, all 21 of his children should be crossed out from the list of suspects. A while later, the sleeve combat takes place. In the middle of it, Bancroft orders the male fighter to fight and defeat Takeshi for a more advanced upgrade. Takeshi is forced into the battlefield, and he has to fight, even though he doesn't want to kill the couple. In the end, Takeshi kills the male opponent at his wife's request, so they get a better upgrade and come back to life. After the party, Takeshi goes to the brothel yet again to meet the girl from yesterday, but she betrays him by drugging him. When he opens his eyes, he is being pushed into a hospital-like facility. It turns out to be a virtual torture room where people are tortured and killed in the virtual world again and again until they confess their crimes. He has been kidnapped by Demi's younger twin brother, whose name is also Demi. The guy is a sadistic maniac who wants revenge for his brother's death. He starts the interrogation by beating Takeshi up with a chain and strangling him. Then he is chained to a metal table and his shoulder is broken. Back in the hotel, Elliot goes through the surveillance footage but finds nothing about Lizzie. All he knows is that she was tortured to the point of insanity. He wants to meet her, but Poe doesn't allow him to, since it might mess with her treatment. Back in the torture chamber, Demi addresses Takeshi as Riker and asks him who he is working for. Eventually, Takeshi registers that Riker is the name of the sleeve he is wearing, but since he knows nothing about the guy, it makes Demi even angrier. While getting beaten to death, Takeshi remembers Quell's training in the Envoy camp. The envoys were taught what to do at times like this. The main trick is to use hallucination, displacement, and retreat as moves in a game. First, by showing the perpetrator that you are strong, then by breaking the shell, and lastly, by striking back. However, it is much easier said than done, because Takeshi hardly gets a chance to think amidst the torture. Meanwhile, at the police station, Kristen is inspecting the video from Bancroft's party. She clearly remembers seeing this strange man staring at her, but none of the cameras have caught him. He has somehow found a way to trick all the surveillance cameras, which could be a huge trouble later on. Kristen calls the guy a ghost walker, and continues looking more into this disappearing technique. Somewhere else, Dimi plucks all of Takeshi's fingernails, then shoots him in the head. After suffering a horrible death, he comes back to life only to be tortured again. Similarly, Takeshi is burned, his limbs are torn, and his eyes are gouged out, but Dimi doesn't get the answer he is looking for. In Takeshi's head, he remembers the time he suffered the same pain in training. Quell's words act as motivation for him, as he continuously plays her in his mind. When all the usual techniques do not work, Dimi buys the special torture package and brings out a box of carnivore reptiles. Then, he makes a hole in Takeshi's stomach and lets the reptile into his body. It is the worst pain the envoy has ever felt, one that no amount of training could prepare him for. He starts talking to himself, repeating the words, hallucination, displacement, and retreat. Suddenly, he reaches a higher level of consciousness and is able to free his hands. To take control, he rips his own heart out and ends up being disconnected from the VR world. The plan works and he comes back to reality, but he is still in the torture facility, surrounded by workers who are being paid to break him. To get out of the situation, he pretends to be a Protectorate officer who has been transferred to Riker's body. The workers panic and free him from the wires, asking for forgiveness. Dimi tries to stop them, but they care about their jobs more than their clients. However, they regret their decision as soon as Takeshi is let out, because he shoots and kills everyone in the room. Then, he walks out with Dimi's head in his hands and meets Elliot outside. A while later, Kristen finds out what happened and barges into Takeshi's room to ask him what is going on. Takeshi, in turn, asks her what her relationship with Riker is. At first, she denies knowing anyone named Riker, but then, it turns out, he was her boyfriend. He was a framed cop whose stack was taken out as punishment. In turn, his body was given to Takeshi, which is why she has been following him. To see what happens next, watch the second part in Series Recapped.